Well, hey there, you're on the internet. I still have too much free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Today's ink is, well, it's kind of complicated. It's the same as Atramentis ink, but it's the off-brand version from xfountainpens.com called Architekt. Now, I've compared both multiple samples I've got of Atramentis Jeans Blue with Architekt Jeans Blue, and they are identical. They come in the same bottles. The label is pretty much the same except for the name. Anyways, it's a glass bottle. It's 35 milliliters. It's a great ink. I love it. Usually lives in this JinHao X450. These are cheapo Chinese pens, but the nibs are actually beautifully broad and surprisingly flexy, and I love them. But anyways, let's check out the chromatography. As you can see, there's some water resistance, not a great deal, but definitely potential for shading because there's this great rich band up at the top. And as you can see, there's a little bit of yellowishness right here at the corners, and that's because when you first start writing with this, it goes on blue, like a very straightforward blue, and then it takes on this slightly greenish undertone hue thing as it dries, which I actually really like, and I think makes it look very much like blue jeans. But anyways, paper test, top down, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. Hopefully you'll be able to see good shading. And 24 seconds to dry, but as I said, it's a pretty broad, pretty wet nib, which I think is pretty great. But anyway, so on such dense paper, it's going to take a while to dry, but it's not the worst we've seen on this paper. No bleed, feather, or spread. I felt the water test was pretty readable, but as you can hear, the paper started to come apart, so it was pretty in there, and as you can see, it turned slightly greenish, which I thought was kind of cool. But anyways, that's because I set it down in some of the water. Sorry about that. It did bleed through a little in the water test, which is unusual for this type of paper. But if you'll notice, it's where I put the dots in that cross section. So that's where there was a pretty heavy amount of ink. Next is Rhodia, which is 80 grams per square meter. Here, somewhat unusually, it took a second longer to dry. But here I felt like the shading was even better. I mean, look at that. That's pretty beautiful. I think that's great. And yeah, no bleed, feather, spread. I said it was good wet flow. Water test, again, I felt was pretty readable, but again, it's a broad nib and it's a little wet. I said there might have been some show through, but on Rodia I think you'd be kind of okay. Again, there was like this one spot really that showed through in the water test, but that was all. Next is Tomoe River, where it got very dark, but I actually really like it on Tomoe River because you get this interesting halo effect, and hopefully I'll be able to pick this up on camera. There's sheen. There's just hints of it, like at the corners and at the edges, but there's sheen. Just a bit, and I only ever really see it on Tomoe River. So, anyway, sometimes it's worth it for the dry time, which was pretty long. Oh, here, it's at the top of this scribble. Maybe I'll be able to catch it in the light. Anyways, hopefully you saw that. Otherwise, this will be the world's longest video. Water test was not fantastic. It's kind of readable, but it's very pale, and again, it turned green, which, I don't know, maybe you're into the water wash thing. No bleed through. There was some potential for show through because it's such thin paper, and it is a fairly dark blue ink, so. Next is 20-pound Copier Paper. Still has shading. Fantastic. And hints of sheen, which there are. Hopefully I'll be able to get some of it on camera because it's, again, like it's like a halo. It's at the edges, it's at the corners. It's just in spots, but it's there. Doesn't want to show up on camera today, but trust me, it's there. Has good rich color. I thought it was very well behaved. I thought the water test was actually very readable. Again, very green, but very readable. So there's that. And no show through even on the water test. I said the dry time was a little long, but 12 seconds, it's not so bad. It's not the worst we've seen. Next is Mead Notebook Paper, where I said there was extreme feathering. And as I wrote extreme feathering, there was extreme feathering. It's pretty bad, but yeah, I said bad combo. The bleed was atrocious. You can read that. I mean, if you're dyslexic like me and you can read backwards, yeah, you can read that. So it's pretty nasty. It's pretty ugly, and I've used this ink on this paper in thinner writing pens, and it's pretty much the same. It's something chemically about the ink that just reacts very badly with the paper. The water test was very messy and very green. That actually does look like an algae farm this time. So, lastly, Moleskine notebook paper, where there was feathering all over the place, and it was bad. There was some spread. Again, the bleed through was crazy. The water test you can read perfectly from the other side. Yeah, it's pretty much the same from either side, which is both amusing and somewhat tragic. But anyways, I said not a good combo. 4 seconds to dry, not the worst, but not the best. It's just kind of a mess on this paper, so whether you want to call it Architekt or you want to call it Atramentis, which I do because all the tests I've done have indicated it's the exact same ink, and most people know it as Atramentis, so that's what I call it. In this JinHao X450, which I love, it pretty much lives in these pens. Great shading. Interesting how you can actually see the color changing as it dries. I think it's a good ink. I think it works well on copier paper, and I think because it has that slightly greenish undertone, you're not going to mistake it for a ballpoint ink. That's for sure. So it's blue enough to be professional, but it's got enough character to, I don't know, appeal to most fountain pen users. So for your consideration, Jeans Blue. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And so long from the Triple N Network. Bye.